Emily, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, it's the pleasure's all on my end, honestly. So, quick backstory for everybody listening. We have a mutual friend. His name's Laith, and when I told him that I was starting this show about music production, he recommended yourself, Emily, aka Bisoux, because you are someone who has started your own journey through music production relatively recently. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. About a year ago, I would say.
Okay,
So
so
still very early days.
early days, early days. However, you're in Sydney producing with a very interesting group of people at a very interesting time. So before we get into all of it, and there's quite a lot to talk about, what I'd love to get from you in the beginning is what was your sort of early musical beginning? So when did you first take an interest in music? What did that look like, even if it was pre-electronic stuff, and kind of what led you to the point that you made the decision that you wanted to start producing music of your own?
Yeah, definitely. So I started really getting into music probably around the age of 12 or 13 when I first fell in love with punk music, like 70s punk music.
Okay.
I knew all the trivia. I was so well read up on the entire culture and its history. And then that eventually kind of expanded into grime. I was always listening to a little bit of hip hop and a bit of R&B, but then I fell in love with grime and basically did the same thing.
Yeah.
And this was probably like 2008, 2009, I want to say.
Okay. Yep.
So
was that
yeah,
right around the time when I started going to Void at Phoenix Bar?
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
And I was still just underage back then. So I was missing out on all these really amazing gigs in Sydney that were getting all these really amazing like grime and dubstep producers. And around this time, there were heaps of jungle parties happening as well. So that's when I was going to my first raves, was the warehouse parties in Alexandria.
Beautiful.
And in Sydney.
Yeah.
And those were the days. That was just so inspiring. There were so many people there. It was just always a really positive experience and a really inspiring experience as well. Because, these are at the scale. We don't have parties so big as this anymore. But back then, there'd be like 3 different stages pumping 3 different genres of music, all within the same kind of umbrella. And it was just like mind-opening to a 16, 17-year-old, like experiencing this for the first time and like meeting really lovely people along the way. And that's basically where it really began, was from there. And
so you were listening to grime, you were listening to all obviously bass and jungle music at those sort of parties, but was there anything in particular that sparked the desire that you were like, I want to do this for myself? Because, plenty of people go to raves and have a great time, but so what was it that sort of kickstarted that for you, would you say?
Yeah, so I'd say I've always been a very introverted person, and I'm not really one to talk about like my feelings much, and it's something that I kind of struggle to vocalize. So through listening to music, that helps me find my voice, as corny as that really sounds.
That's awesome.
It's something that, did really speak to me and, would help me through hard times and happy times. And I've forgotten the question. Sorry.
The question was, what was it that really kicks? So a lot of people go to raves, a lot of people enjoy themselves, and, you're meeting lovely people. So it's like sort of, what was it that made you go, I want to do that?
Yeah. So, being introverted, it was a way for me to express myself and to explore those feelings and to communicate those through a different sense, like something that felt a bit more comfortable and something that I was more familiar with.
Absolutely. So who were those artists in particular that really resonated with you? I know you've sent me through 5 tunes that I'm going to be sharing that kind of really kind of encapsulate your sound. But at the time, who were the kind of artists that you were really, really into?
Okay, back then, so I loved like Murky Ace and Family Tree.
Yep.
And who else? Big H is another one.
Okay.
JME.
Yep.
Yeah, DEE, of course. Yeah, everyone.
Amazing.
All of it.
Yeah, so you bit of like an encyclopedic knowledge of grime, you said. You went from that being punk to sort of grime. That's awesome. And so you've been producing for about a year now. So what was the sort of catalyst there and how did that start?
So that started with the track Heartache that Akul and I made.
Yeah.
So that was made after an event that I used to DJ for called Bad Girl Garden, and it was focused all on, it was all female run, it was all female led.
Yep.
Everyone that was booked was female, and again, always a really positive experience. And we just had a really great night one night, and we had some people back at ours, and the whole walk home I had like this melody in my head, and I'd spoken to Akul about producing music and I wanted to get into it, and I said, let's sit down, like let's write this down, let's write this song. And we did that in one night. Like we just, in a few hours, we just collaborated on this tune. He was behind the buttons and I was kind of just like backseat driving. Just my input. And yeah, we just smashed that out in one go. And that was actually about like 5 years ago now. It was actually a little while back.
Wow.
But it was really fun. And we just sat on it for ages. And then Mincy was looking for some Australian productions for a guest mix that she had coming up for a UK show. And reached out to Cool, and he sent her that track. And eventually that was around the time she decided to start Extra Spicy.
Yep.
So that was one of the first releases, and that's kind of, yeah.
It was the first, it was Extra Spicy 001. I just played it on the show just before. Yeah, you're right, it's very so you were walking home from a party one night and you just had that in your head and you just had to sort of get it out somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And like a bit of a dance hall. I wanted a bit of like a dance hall beat because I think I did a dance hall set that night and that's what we were playing a lot. So
Yeah. So Akul, who obviously is on Extra Spicy as well, and he's also part of Finespun, which is something that we're going to get into a bit in a minute. You mentioned to me in our pre-talks that he's sort of mentoring you through this. Obviously, the first tune that you made ever was, a collaboration between the two of you. So I'm keen to sort of get it because I'm starting my own music production journey as well. That's why I'm starting this radio show, is to get as much sort of input and discuss it and force myself to talk to people about it constantly and get over the sort of fear barriers that I have about doing it, which, from the sounds of things, it's something that you've probably struggled with as well, I would guess as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. So how is he helping you? And what are the kinds of things that he's sort of like showing you? Yeah. And what are the how is he helping you?
So he's basically shown me everything that I know.
Okay.
He kind of showed me start to finish. Well, I've been watching him for years as well, produce music and sitting behind him and just watching him do it. And every now and then he would ask me on feedback for a song that he would be working on, and I would be watching how he was doing it. So he got me onto, I'm going to have to get back to you on the name. He got me onto this tutorial site. And
is it Education and Bass?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So Akul got me onto Education and Bass. And I watched a few tutorials, and there's like a free software that they provide.
Okay.
And it's really simple, it's really straightforward, and it's purely just to learn the very basics.
Yep.
So I had a bit of a go with that and played around with that. And when I felt comfortable, that's when I opened up Cubase and started playing around. So Akul would sit down with me and show me, this is how I start my project. And he would show me the idea of basically making a pool of all of your samples and just making like a loop, an 8-bar loop, essentially, but just filling that up, like making the beat, you know, starting with the kick drum and yeah.
So you think that a good place to start, or that like your sort of workflow at the minute, is just to create an 8-bar loop, and that's all you're sort of focusing on, and just sort of layering that with all your different samples and all your different bits and pieces. And then what? Once you've got that to a point where would that be like the peak time of it, and then you sort of just build the song structure out from there?
Yeah, exactly. So start with the 8-bar loop.
Yep.
So the moment you open up the project, just start with your kick bass. That's always the first thing that I start with, is just the kick bass, and just find your simple beat and to your tempo. What tempo do you want to go for?
Yep.
And build it up from there. Add your hi-hats, add your snare. So I'd build up the simple beat like that, and then eventually maybe start sampling some breaks. Or I often start as well with a vocal. I often start with, I collect some acapellas and I'll pull one, and I often use that as inspiration for the tune, like what direction is it going to go in. Okay. I often think that music should say something, a good song should say something and communicate something to you as an audience, or it should transport you in some type of way. So I find that it helps with a vocal while I'm beginning my journey.
Yeah. You enjoy the way, the direction that a vocal can, or the dimension that a vocal can add to your tune, and kind of help inspire you to fill out the rest of the blanks, if that makes sense. So it like highlights what needs to be done from there just by adding a vocal.
Exactly. And that's why I'm starting with bootlegs as well, because when you're using a full a cappella, it does help you as well with the structure of the song.
Yep.
So, and that is a good aid as well. So yeah, that's a good way to start as well, is just doing bootlegs.
Very nice. Yeah. And there's a great bootleg community, because like it's like you can't release it formally without clearing the sample. So there's all the, you get white labels, and you get like sort of these, tracks that people know, but they're never going to get a commercial release because they'll never. That's awesome.
Yeah, and free downloads as well. You get heaps of free downloads.
Yeah.
That use a really good sample. Yeah.
So you use Cubase, do you, for production, and not Ableton? What is that? Why is that?
So I use Cubase because that's just what I had access to. Sometimes I wish that I did use Ableton, because it looks really easy and people have really good things to say about it and how easy it is to use. Cubase is a bit more hectic. It's a bit more full on. I feel like there's a bit more digging and familiarizing yourself with the program.
Okay.
I don't think it's quite as user-friendly perhaps as Ableton, but I mean, I haven't used it, so I can't compare it. I can't really compare.
Well, see, I come from a Pro Tools background. I studied music production, and I used to use Pro Tools. So that's just like, as Gilson says, it's a glorified tape machine. You're just laying down tracks on the timeline, and that's basically all you're doing. Whereas with Ableton, I spoke to Ned Rush yesterday, and he said that Ableton, not only is it like it's like the most incredible drum machine VST performance tool that like can possibly exist, because it takes all the best elements of like VSTs, but basically turns it into a giant drum machine, so you can actually perform live with it. But as I say, I don't own it yet, but I think that's probably the direction I'm going to go, is kind of grab Ableton, grab a Push 2, like a controller, and then just sort of start mucking around with that. But obviously use the advice of different people saying, "Oh, I try this, I do this." You know what I mean? So I think I've decided on Ableton. But having said that, do you know Special Circumstances?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was a Cubase guy for years.
Yeah. What's he using now?
He moved to Ableton, but he used Cubase for like the majority of his production career has always been Cubase. And he's been making music for like 10, 12 years, you know what I mean? Like it's not like any of them is better than the other. It's just what people prefer, and there's a huge Cubase community out there. Huge.
Yeah. But that said, I would definitely start with Ableton. If I could go back now, I would start with Ableton.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
No worries.
It just seems to have all of the features that you need as well. Like my version of Cubase, I have to pay extra to get just to access a pitch. just to be able to change a pitch on a track.
What, it's like it's an additional functionality that you need an additional subscription for or something like that.
Yeah, like I need the next level up of Cubase
Okay.
or whatever, which is going to cost me like $180. I'm like, I just want to change the pitch of this track. I don't want to pay $180.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's like, it should just be full version. You know what I mean? Just give us the full version.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is a bit of a sidetrack. Have you heard of a program called Reaper?
I never know. What is that?
So Reaper, I don't know if this is going to make me show my age. Do you remember a program called Winamp?
Yes.
So Winamp was like a media player back when MP3s were a thing and Napster was going around. So the guys who made Winamp, they sold Winamp and they went and they made a DAW called Reaper. And it's got a huge community of people who like develop it themselves. And the whole program, full version, is like 60 pounds for the full version. And it's like a very, very powerful DAW. It's not a performance tool like Ableton, but it's got a lot of the features and tools that, like, you know, compare it to something like Pro Tools where you're paying thousands and thousands of dollars and pounds. It's like, this is the whole version for $60. It's crazy. Wow. And I use it for editing some of my stuff. It's amazing. So yeah, shout out the Reaper massive. Shouts out anyone that uses Reaper. I needed to add that in. Sorry, massive tangent. This is what happens. Cool. Right. So you've started your production, you've started truly making music in earnest about a year ago, but you're involved in your first releases on Extra Spicy, which is a very exciting label. Shout out DJ Sunroof, whose release came out today, I think, and Mincy, who started Extra Spicy. Definitely have to try and get both of them on the show as well. But you've started your own label as well.
Yes. Oh, I kind of jumped onto a label.
Cool.
So my homie Slam, he started Finespun probably, I think it was 6 years ago, with one release. And he brought that back last year. He decided to bring back Finespun, and he reached out to Akul and I to get us involved with the label. Mm-hmm. And of course, I had to get involved with it.
Yeah.
And it's been so much fun.
Cool. So what's happened since then? Where's Finespun at right now?
So right now we're working on our next release. It's going to be a single artist release. So in the past we've had various artist EPs, yep. But this is one artist. This is a homie from Melbourne,
okay,
by the name of Isguan, and it's more of a bass heavy EP this time around.
Okay.
So we're definitely going to be leaning more in the UKG direction,
yep,
and the garage direction. That's just all kind of where our hearts are at right now. But we're still going to have like the more club bass-driven tracks as well.
Yeah. But obviously there's been a huge UKG resurgence in the last couple of years. Like so many good releases are coming out, like fresh sounding stuff. So it's a good sound to be. Yeah, I can understand why your heart's there, because, you know, there's this resurgence happening.
Yeah, definitely. And well, it's exciting to be doing it with Slam, because like he's really the person who showed me garage and UKG. It was kind of him and Revived Pleasure at house parties, mm-hmm. Playing that all the time. And I never really listened to it because it was a bit too like bubblegum.
Yeah.
It sounded like pop. It sounded like pop to me at the time, you know, listening to grime and punk music. And
you're like, what is this really soft, fun shit? I want it hard.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just like love songs, and I'm used to songs about like punching someone in the face or something.
Yeah.
But it grew on me because that, you know, I've got that soft side as well.
Yeah.
So so it's exciting to be involved with him because he kind of showed me that and got me into it really, and now we get to make music together and release it together, and it's really exciting.
It's fantastic. No, it's a really, really exciting time in Sydney. Some really amazing labels popping up, some really incredible music being produced, and it's really I kind of wish I was back there and it was happening while I was living there, but it's still beautiful to kind of see it finally blossoming. And if there's anything that I can do to help, as I said before, anything I can do to help promote it, I'm always here to sort of help promote the Sydney scene, because it's where it's where my love of electronic music really kind of grew as well. So yeah.
There's always been that scene. So
yeah,
there's always been that scene. So the big part of it right now is the community, and wanting to build that community up as well.
Because there's so much talent in Australia, so much. But I think it's always really struggled to find its own identity and voice within the international scene, which is where I guess the people can actually make money and a living from music, people touring around Europe and that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's been a tough one.
Yeah, and there's been a few roadblocks here in Sydney, even just keeping the scene going in Sydney, because we had the lockout laws.
Yep.
Now we've had COVID, and and the warehouse parties being shut down as well. Like, that was our one recluse, and then they were targeted. So it's just been hard to keep the scene going here. So I think the way we had to do it is we have kind of been pushed into forming labels and forming these new communities, because we've kind of run out of spaces. There's so few spaces left here now.
Yeah.
So now this is how we're kind of running things right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of almost like the oppression on the scenes has forced the scene to become more organized, rather than just sort of being, just putting on parties and whatever. It's like, no, we have to be structured and disciplined because we need to fight these assholes that are trying to take away our fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just to keep the community together as well, because if we can't all gather in these spaces, like, how else are we going to maintain those moments and those connections with one another?
Yeah, absolutely. It's awesome. It's awesome to see. And, anything I can do, let me know. I want to ask you this. So, what's next? So, obviously, we've got the new releases coming up on Finespun. What's the sort of end game here for you? I know it's difficult to say, but what's the dream for you? Where do you kind of see all this leading for you as a producer, as a kind of someone in the music business? Yeah, where's it sort of headed for you?
I want this to be my life. Like, it's not about money, it's always about the music. But if this could be sustainable, where it could be a place where we did have this really strong community and we could create our own economies, that's kind of the end game for me. Yeah. Like, I would like this to be as big as it can possibly go, because there is so much talent here, and we need to foster that talent. And there's people out there that are making really great music, but they're just not finding a place, or they're not feeling maybe the confidence, or I'm not sure what it is, but I want to show them as well what we can actually do, and what we can do when we all get together as a community and we support each other in this way. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So,
really noble.
I want it to be our own economy.
Yeah, really noble. Want it to be your own economy. I can't commend that highly enough. That's probably one of the reasons that I bounced and came to London, was because I just didn't think it was going to happen in Australia. So, that's really commendable, and I wish you all the best with it. And Emily, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us on this new show. I've learned a lot, and keep in touch. I look forward to seeing what's coming from you, and everything that you're involved in. It's awesome.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me, Kieran.
Cheers. Bye.
Speak again soon. Bye.
Hello, legend. Thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. If you like that, I got a ton more of these interviews being uploaded constantly on the YouTube page. And I do a weekly mix on Mixcloud every Saturday. So if you can subscribe, like, comment, that helps out loads with the algorithm. And if you follow me everywhere and you like the sound of what's going on here, let me know. I'm always open to hearing from people. This is very new. I'm figuring it out as I go along. But there's tons more. Check out the other interviews. Follow me. Listen. Jump onto the live stream. Say hi. I'm a friendly dude, and I really appreciate you watching. So thank you so much. You're a fucking legend. Love ya. Peace. Bye.